Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Welcome back. Welcome one and welcome all. You're all welcome here. The Fantasy Footballers, Andy and Jason, back again. This is our final day of full verification status. Mike is, I believe, on his way back with his family and will join us on Monday. I believe he will also Periscope on Sunday morning. If you're missing the beard, that is where you will find him on Twitter, Periscoping with some Sunday morning last-minute questions.
In fairness, we both have beards. They're
Well,
just not quite as epic.
Yeah, I guess we do. We got baby beards.
Yeah, we'll call them baby beards.
When you're next to Mike, it just doesn't seem fair to call them beards, but
fair.
It's true. Now, you were saying you believe the beard trend will eventually...
Oh, no, not eventually. Quickly.
Will quickly go away.
I look
Much
around,
like the mid-90s goatee.
Exactly. Everyone had a goatee. Now a goatee would just look ridiculous. How dare you?
So,
you know, the 70s, you had the mustache, or maybe that was the 80s. I don't remember.
That's what the next rotation needs to be. I want to go mustache before I go.
Well, the nice thing is if it goes from beard to mustache, you're already done.
Right.
You just shave all butt.
Okay. All right.
Anyways.
Yeah.
How's fantasy football going, Andy? I'll tell you how fantasy football went last night for everyone listening. It sucked. It just was it wasn't the worst, right? I don't think anybody completely just terrorized, crapped your team. Coby Fleener got his touchdown.
Well,
Michael
yeah.
Thomas got some garbage time work where you're disappointed with both of them, but at least they scored. But nobody performed up to expectations. No one.
I think you would have been happy with Tim Hightower, would you not?
Yeah, you might be right in that. If you had to start Tim Hightower.
Tim Hightower ended up with, he was 12 for 69 on the ground and 8 for 57 through the air, so about 17, 18 fantasy points. He was probably, Ingram got knocked out with a concussion. Drew Brees didn't play very well.
Drew Brees started the game off with 2 interceptions, very un-Drew Brees-like.
Yeah, but this just goes to show, it reminds me of last year with a couple of the defenses, Houston. This team is not the same defense they were before the bye. This is the third straight game in which Carolina's defense has played well. Now, you do lose Luke Kuechly.
That was what I was going to bring up.
Which was so incredibly sad, seeing him weeping on the field.
He was
playing so well, too.
Good last night. I mean, I can't even believe how good he was last night. He was on every play. It doesn't matter if it was down the field, in the backfield, left, right. He was everywhere.
But mostly disappointments. And their defense, they lost not just Kuechly, but they lost Mario Addison. They lost Leonard Johnson. So maybe it reverts.
Yeah.
But last night they were there. You weren't happy with Benjamin or Olsen or Snead or Cooks. I mean, it was rough. It was a rough day. Almost as rough as my Christmas season and how it got started out.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, my wife, I know some of you out there will just mock me for this, but we like our Christmas, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And so when Halloween's over, we've got 3 little kids. We like to get the tree up. We like to get in the Christmas season. I went out and I purchased 2 of those light projectors
which are awesome.
Which are really cool, and they project green and red, like snow on the house, and I got those all installed and hooked up and bought extension cables.
And they go in the front of your yard and shine towards your house.
Yeah, they were stolen yesterday. Right out of my front yard.
You got a good 2.5 days of use out of those.
Merry Christmas to me. So I'm not buying another set.
So if you're listening.
Give them back.
And you stole Andy's lasers. Just put them on the doorstep.
Don't steal my lasers.
Yeah.
All right, we have a great show for you today. We have the rest of the fantasy forecast. We have in and out on the show today. Probably get into a little bit of mailbag. Give Jason a chance to lay down the mailbag drop. And we also have...
FootClan Friday.
Every Friday, we give away a $50 gift card to shopballers.com, and we give it away to somebody who is supporting the show over at jointhefoot.com. Today's winner is Captain Sink.
Captain Sink.
You may not know that name, but it is a very familiar name over at jointhefoot.com and our fantasy community.
Congratulations.
So, congratulations to Captain Sink. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We've been tweeting out all of the playoff primer pictures, so like the best and worst wide receiver matchups in each position, and you can find all of that on our Twitter, make it really easy for you to reference. You know what that helps with?
What does that help with?
Trades. Really helps with some of these
for sure.
end-of-season trade decisions that you have. We've had a lot of the trade questions come in. I realized something else. Once you get to Week 11, those trade request questions on Twitter, they start to have words like desperate in them.
Yeah,
because everything's heavier right now. You got to get that FootClan title.
Yeah, you have to. You can't win the FootClan title if you don't make the playoffs. Got to get wins if you are not clinched right now.
Yeah. So,
all right,
let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
So Jordan Howard came out to clarify the injury. You know, he played and in practice yesterday. He said it was an Achilles injury a little bit. He says he's good, so start him.
Yeah, if he's practicing
if you were going to start him, start him.
Yeah, I think I don't know why you were not going to start him. He should be started this week.
Percy Harvin, he's going to play.
Expected to be a full, not just play, but start. He's going to be an integral part of slowing that offense down.
Yeah, he's going to be on a snap count. So is he worth a flyer?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I will say this. There's no team that I have that I would be willing to grab him.
I don't think adding Percy Harvin and starting him ahead of Justin Hunter hurts your team.
No. So you're saying for real life for the Bills?
Yeah, well, for Tyrod Taylor.
Sure. But no, for fantasy, I don't think Percy Harvin is relevant.
Jacob Tammy underwent season-ending surgery, which means Austin Hooper.
Yeah, Hooper is I think
he's a low-end tight end one, maybe?
Yeah, I think he'll have weeks where he finishes as a tight end one. You've seen over many years Matt Ryan use the tight end. You've seen it this year with Jacob Tammy, who, let's be honest, he's not that talented. He's just the guy in that role.
He just knows what he's doing.
Right. Yeah, and that there's something to be said for that. He knew what he was doing more than Austin Hooper did. But Austin Hooper is a talented pass-catching tight end.
Hooper and Henry going to take the league by storm over the next few years, I think.
They very well could, because they have kind of the perfect situation of the pass-catching ability mixed with the right system to fall into, and it looks like, the old studs are leaving. Antonio Gates won't last forever.
Did you see the news? DraftKings and FanDuel have merged.
Oh, is it a done deal?
They have agreed to merge.
Wow.
That's very interesting. It's a different landscape for daily fantasy sports right now. Apparently, they don't want to be competing and spending millions and millions of dollars against one another.
That's probably smart, probably for the best. I hope it works out well for them and that everything can get regulated right. I think this should make draft the number 2 DFS, right? If not,
this merger won't complete until the second half of 2017. So until that happens, because it has to go through all that regulatory stuff, they'll operate independently. But I just thought that was interesting news. It's in the fantasy sphere. We should mention it. Let's go ahead and talk about injuries.
What's it gonna be, McFly? Are you in or out?
All right, I'm going to put you through the gauntlet. You don't have Mike next to you, Jason, so I'm going to need your help here.
All right.
In or out, Andy Dalton?
In.
Yeah. In or out, DeMarco Murray?
DeMarco Murray will play.
Wide receiver-wise, let's go through a few of these guys. Ty Montgomery.
Returned to a full practice Thursday. He should be good to go, but I'm not loving him as a player.
Randall Cobb. Those worried about Randall Cobb?
Yeah, he was limited, but he should be fine. He's been limited and started the last few. He said he'll be fine for Sunday.
How about a couple guys that missed last week? Jeremy Maclin and DeSean Jackson.
Those are...
I don't think Maclin plays.
Going to be more interesting. I agree with you. I think Maclin
I'm almost assured that he's not going
out this week. And if he
I really like
out,
Tyreek Hill.
I know you do, and I would agree. If he is out, I think Tyreek Hill is a pretty good play. DeSean Jackson, on the other hand, he practiced a little bit, and if he's practicing a little bit, I think he'll be in the game. Not you're not going to start him, but maybe it bumps down a guy like Jamison Crowder a little bit.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh, there's no chance in the world he's missing the Minnesota game. Plus, he returned to a full practice, so
That makes it easy. All right, Jordan Matthews.
he returned to practice Thursday. I expect he's questionable right now. I think he will play.
How about the former phenom who hasn't done it in a while, Will Fuller? And what is he rest of season? Because
rest of
it's just
season
not exciting with Brock.
Yeah, I mean, Brock started the first 2 weeks with a little bit of confidence and looked like, he can get enough of the job done, and I think that confidence has waned. The quarterback position is a mental position. As much as it is physical, you need an arm to be able to throw the deep ball. But you've seen in the past when quarterbacks lose their confidence, Matt Schaub, as soon as
Jake Delhomme.
Exactly. As soon as that mind starts turning on you, telling you maybe you're not good enough, you are not good enough. And so I don't like Will Fuller much rest of season. He returned to practice. I think he'll play. I wouldn't start him.
Does Victor Cruz come back this week?
Victor Cruz practiced on Thursday, so I would say yeah.
All right, few tight end names. Gronkowski.
Gronk is out. It was already said earlier that he's going to miss at least 1 week. He's not practiced all week. Don't start him. Have a different plan.
Jimmy Graham this week.
Jimmy Graham returned to practice Thursday. I expect he will play.
Against Philadelphia, how do you like Graham in that matchup?
Against Philadelphia, I don't love Graham all that much. I think Philly is pretty good against the tight end. However, Jimmy Graham is a key part of that offense. I'm expecting, 5 for 58.
You're probably starting.
You're probably starting him because I'm not going to pick a waiver guy up and take 2 roster spots away, and I'm not going to drop Jimmy Graham.
All right,
yes.
Zach Ertz.
He didn't practice Thursday, and he says he's confident he will play this week. I am not confident he will play this week. I would say he's a 50-50 to me.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the Week 11 matchups.
Fantasy Forecast.
It's getting to that time of year where the weather is important to pay attention to. And so along with our game day alerts, which we provide over at jointhefoot.com, we also have an article that goes up on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, every Sunday morning, written by one of our writers, Eric. It is an overview for the weather circumstances for the morning.
Well done article. It gives you really the fantasy implications and what matters, because sometimes weather matters, sometimes it doesn't. You don't want to be tricked.
Sometimes it's just a tiebreaker for you in your decision-making process.
Yeah. In fact, we should bring up, because someone had pointed it out, that the Cleveland Brown game with the Steelers going to Cleveland, it's going to be pretty chilly, 30 degrees. It's not until you get into the 20s that you see, scores really start to dip. But there is a chance of snow. So, if it's a tiebreaker, if you're close between two guys, maybe that brings, we talked up Eli Rogers quite a bit. Maybe, that gives a little bit of
hesitation. If you didn't listen to any of the show yesterday, we went over the first half of the matchup. So if you don't hear one on today's show, that's because it was on yesterday's show.
Go back.
So go back and listen.
And what a great show
it was. The magic of on demand. It really was.
It was pretty much the best show ever.
All 4 this week, thus far,
have been each one the best ever. We're setting new career highs.
Yeah. I mean, just there's like not a weight on me, an unverified weight sitting upon me.
I don't feel a dirty, nasty, grungy, homeless man in. Oh.
Is he verified?
Nope. Not verified. Don't trust a word he says.
All right. We'll see. Maybe he'll get verified someday, but until then, we're keeping him away.
I hope he gets verified this weekend, because these shows, man, they've been 100% verified, and now we're gonna step it down.
So trustworthy. So trustworthy. Unlike the person who stole my Christmas lights. That person is not trustworthy. Not verified. There's no way that person's verified.
No way. All right, Cardinals, Vikings. That is one of the most interesting football games this week. Two teams that looked presumably playoff bound, that are reeling. One of these two are definitely not going to make the playoffs.
You think?
I think that this game is going to be a huge game for these two teams. They're going to be competing for that same wild card spot, is my opinion.
These teams are both wheat bread right now. They're just, you eat it, but you're not really that happy with it, and you're kind of It's just not doing anything for you. There's nothing special about both of these teams right now.
You pretend that it's healthy, but it's still bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably doesn't get into the playoffs. So, Cardinals, Vikings. Vikings are favored at home. This game was a pick'em earlier in the week. I think it's pretty much a pick'em in my mind. And to be honest with you, low over-under, 40-point over-under right now. So, and I wouldn't expect a lot of points. The defenses are better than these offenses. That's for sure. Cardinals haven't put it together on offense to the point where, last year you were trusting Carson Palmer. There's no way you start him in this game, and you're not touching Sam Bradford with a 10-foot pole. The Cardinals are the second best pass D, and the Vikings are the sixth best. So is this game settled on the ground?
Yeah, it's settled on the ground, and I don't think you want the ground game at all for the Vikings. You don't want Asiata. You don't want McKinnon. McKinnon is officially worthless. He has had opportunity after opportunity, weeks, and he has never done anything of fantasy relevance.
Mick quitting on him?
What, Mike's gone?
That was for Mike.
That was terrible.
So Asiata?
Yes, Asiata. I'm not starting any Vikings running backs.
And then the Cardinals and Vikings defenses have only given up. Is that accurate? That seems insane. 10 points a game about. Each defense has given up about 10 points a game.
Wow. That's pretty good.
That's not a fantasy forecast that I like.
I would be willing to play either defense. Would you be willing to play the Vikings defense against Carolina?
Yes, they're at home. I would absolutely play the Vikings defense. People asked me this week, would you drop them now, move on? If there's a better matchup out there, sure, but I'm fine playing them too.
I think I am as well, and obviously the Arizona Cardinals defense you're going to play. So the real question in this game, you're going to start David Johnson. You're not starting any of the Vikings. The real question are the wide receivers on both sides of the ball. What do you do with Stefon Diggs, and who is the Arizona Cardinal wide receiver to have? Because I personally, he's my start of the week. I love Larry Fitzgerald this week going back home to Minnesota. He has been dominant. He's been over 10 receptions 2 games in a row.
Yeah, for these type of games, I'll go with the PPR receivers. So Larry Fitzgerald and Stefon Diggs, they've averaged 7.6 receptions per game. They're both tied for second among wide receivers. So when in doubt of touchdowns and scoring opportunities, let me get the pass volume.
Yeah,
David Johnson's an auto start.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Would you start any other wide receiver? Would you start a John Brown, a J.J. Nelson?
I would not. I would not touch them.
I agree.
No.
So you got 3 startable players in this game.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right.
Let's move on.
The Bears take on the New York Football Giants, 44.5-point over-under. Giants heavily favored. We saw the collapse of Cutler last week. John Fox says he's sticking with him this week. We talked about Jordan Howard's health. He seems to be active, and therefore you can play him. The big storylines for me, again, we talked about it last week. It's the running backs for the Giants, and what do you do with them? It's the wide receivers for the Bears, and what do you do with them?
Well, the wide receivers for the Bears are going to be the biggest question mark. Nobody knows. I can sit here. You can sit there. I can argue for Royal. You can argue for Meredith, or vice versa. Until we see what happens in an Alshon Jeffrey-less world, you don't know. And the reality is, I kind of lean with the logic you just had of you. If you don't know, you go with the PPR type of guy, which usually has been Eddie Royal.
The problem with that is Eddie Royal's not healthy.
Right.
So it swings me to the Meredith side because Eddie Royal was limited on Wednesday. He's technically questionable for the game. So
yeah, that
I think it pushes it into the start Meredith over Royal this week.
Yeah, for me, the real benefactor of Alshon Jeffrey being gone is Zach Miller, because Zach Miller is 1, healthy, 2, talented, and 3, has already been a constant target from Jay Cutler. So if you're needing that outlet, I think he's going to continue going to Zach Miller in this game. Cameron Meredith, I guess he's okay, but the reality is, the New York Giants defense has been really good on the opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. So I think for now, I'm staying clear of Cameron Meredith, of Royal. I'll start Zach Miller and Jordan Howard from the Bears, and that is it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm tempering expectations for Jordan Howard as well in this game, because you have been able to pass on the Giants. You really haven't been able to run on them this year. They're one of the better running defenses. So what do you do with the Perkins and Rashad Jennings circumstance or situation? Last week we saw Jennings kind of come alive at the end of the game, but we saw heavy snap counts for Perkins at the beginning. So how do you feel about this matchup? And I'm looking this up right now. Last week, it was a 60-40 split between those two guys. No carries for Darkwa or Rainey. Perkins, they both actually had 45. Is that true? I think they both had 45 snaps.
Yeah, their snaps were about equal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the game, it was Rashad Jennings. And I kind of mentioned this in our early week show. What we saw was a real true 50-50 split up until the end when they were running the clock out. And as soon as they started running the clock out, that's where Jennings took over. I don't know if they were just saying, hey, put it in the veterans' hands so there's no fumble because rookies tend to cough up the ball a little bit more. Early in the game, it was like 9-9 carries to carries. Then Paul Perkins, he stayed at 9, and Rashad Jennings took the next 6 snaps, got 15 carries for 87 yards. I expect the same exact kind of thing to happen here where it's going to be a 50-50 split. That to me says that I'm not really loving either guy.
I did not think that Perkins looked especially better than Jennings last week.
When they were running, I thought they looked near the same. Yeah, I guess when I watched it, I did think Perkins looked a little bit better.
One last question on this game. If Victor Cruz does sit, what's your confidence level in Sterling Shepard? And would you, where would you slot him in? Is it 3? Would you play him?
Yeah, I think he's in the playable category if Victor Cruz does miss. We saw last week Sterling Shepard got the touchdown in Victor Cruz's absence. The problem here is that the Chicago passing defense has been pretty good.
Do you like him more or less than Eli Rogers this week? Because those guys seem like they're in the same category for me. I have Shepard a little bit higher than Rogers.
I would rather have Rogers because of the matchup. I realize the weather might be a factor, but
I'll tell you have it ranked.
Give me the Browns as opposed to the Chicago Bears. I don't know. We can debate that. You know what else we can debate? Let's thank today's sponsor.
Let's do that.
Fandings, the Fandings app. You have heard us talk about them all the time. We've had plenty of Fandings debates. This is a platform for people like you and me.
It's an app.
To debate all sorts of topics in every genre you can imagine. In fact, this week while Mike's been gone, we have found off the air that Andy and I are just debating everything back and forth, taking sides and debating. That's what our listeners love to do, and Fandings is a great place to be able to do that. They post new issues, new questions, new debatable topics all the time. You hop on the app. It's free to do. It's free to play, and you just basically pick a side and make your debate, and it's going to be judged right there, and you're going to be a winner or you're going to be a loser, and you go to the next question. It's a lot of fun to be in there. Fandings, they feature questions on the hottest topics in sports every day. So you can debate your friends, or you can face off against a random opponent, and the debates are judged and juried right in the app by popular vote. You can get in there and just vote on who you think is a better debater. Download Fandings free in the App Store or going to fandings.com. Let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you, and you can also check out fandings.com and debate there for Android users.
Yeah, so check it out. Check out the Fandings
And there's a new
app.
leaderboard.
There is.
So you can climb up, get some trophies.
We all like to, compete.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
We also want to thank Pristine Auction, good friends of the show. You know Pristine Auction by now, and if you don't, you need to head over to the website, pristineauction.com. That's Pristine auction.com. Look, they are the absolute leaders when it comes to authentic, autographed, signed sports memorabilia. Awesome stuff. You want throwback gear? I went on there this morning. They have a 1972 Dolphins helmet signed by Bob Greasy and 6 of the other players on that team. You want a Walter Payton jersey on the daily auction today.
Ooh, that's good.
You want something new? You new school? You want that Carson Wentz autographed helmet? You want that Dak Prescott signed custom frame jersey? I saw Ezekiel Elliott on there with a custom frame jersey and a custom Ezekiel Elliott helmet. These are affordable. It is very fun to browse. Drop it in your bookmark bar, and just on a daily basis, you can see what gear is there from your favorite teams, players from the past and from right now. So there are hundreds of daily auctions. Check it out at pristineauction.com. You will not regret it, and don't forget to tell them the Fantasy Footballers sent you. Let's move on and talk about the Dolphins and the Rams. These first 3 games, we're not seeing
a lot of fantasy output.
No, this is I would stay far away from this one.
Oh, really? I think you got to start Jared Goff as the number 1 quarterback.
Right.
He's going to be great.
That sounds like something Mike would say. 40 point over under in this game.
I might take the over just because of pick sixes. Just for the chance of the defense on these two teams.
Should we not hedge here? Can you give Goff a chance at competing in this game?
I will say this. Usually when a quarterback takes over that they've had in this situation where they're saying, he's not ready, they're going to come out and they're going to script things to get him involved. They've got Tavon Austin. 10 or 15 plays. Exactly. They've got Tavon Austin to get some screen games going. After that fails, and if they get down because the Miami Dolphins offense has been clicking, they've been looking pretty good. Jared Goff does have, a strong arm. There's a reason he was the number 1 pick overall in the draft. I think a Kenny Britt type of player, if they allow Jared Goff to open it up, Kenny Britt has the matching skill set. I'm not really confident in starting Tavon Austin or Kenny Britt, but I guess there's a glimmer of hope there for I would say Kenny Britt.
Kenny Britt has been extremely reliable over the last 5 weeks. 10, 10, 30, 6, 12, 15.
Fantasy points per game.
Correct.
Those are great. And now the question is, can you
Does that happen with Goff?
Exactly. I would have started him automatically this week and kept that streak going if you had Keenum, but with the quarterback change, you just don't know. It could be better for him, but I prefer to always wait and see, especially right now where you have to make the playoffs. I'm not looking for glory plays right now. I'm looking for give me the players that I know are going to perform.
Here's an interesting stat nugget for you, Jason. I believe you talked about on this show, maybe it was the FootClan show, the fact that Todd Gurley has not rushed for 20 or more yards on any of his 167 carries, which is 29th in the league. That is, that's dead last.
Yeah, you have 0.
Benny Cunningham, mind you, has done it twice on 18 carries this year.
That's
Jay Ajayi on the other side of this matchup has rushed for 20 or more yards on 8 of his carries, which is 6%. That's number 1 in the league. So these guys are completely the opposite when it comes to the big play potential. Even if you break it down to 10-yard runs, Gurley's near the bottom of the league. It's 6% of his runs. 20% of Jay Ajayi's runs are more than 10 yards right now.
That's what it looks like, man. He's getting a lot of chunk yardage. Now, whether he can do it in this game, they are going to be out Albert, their tackle, for this game. And we have seen so far this year, when they have injuries to their offensive line in Miami, things go poorly quickly. They have to shift guys around. They move Larry Tunsil. And what I've seen is when they have an injury striking their offensive line has been unbelievably bad in pass protection. They're still pretty good at run blocking. I would start Jay Ajayi.
I was going to say, what is the fantasy implication of that information? Because Ajayi, if you're starting him now, you're not sitting him.
You can't sit a guy who has been averaging over 100 yards, a game and a touchdown a game pretty much for a month. You can't sit him. You can't sit him because of a bad matchup. You can't sit him because of a bad offensive line.
So would you start him over Gurley in this game?
Yes, I would start him over Gurley. And what I am saying is that if he has a down game, some of those factors might be to blame when we come in next week. And if they get Albert back, I would bump Jay Ajayi back up.
For some reason, the fantasy community really, really likes the bandwagon of Devontae Parker.
I don't get it.
So I guess you're not part of that.
I am not part of it.
He had an okay game last week, but you would start Landry over Parker.
I would start Landry over Parker. I would start Kenny Stills over Parker.
You would.
Kenny Stills has shown it all year. He's gotten behind the defense all year. Now, let me be clear. I don't want to start Kenny Stills, and I don't want to start Devontae Parker. I personally would start, Landry and Jay Ajayi. This is, again, the third game we're talking about here where it's
not an exciting game.
It's not an exciting game. You're going to start Todd Gurley. You're going to start Jay Ajayi.
Here's a game I'm actually excited about.
Yeah, let's talk about a good one, please.
New England and San Francisco. Now, I'm not excited about it being competitive. I'm excited about this game being a high-scoring affair in which it really evens out production on both sides of the ball. You're rolling Brady out regardless of the Gronk situation. He has Martellus Bennett, he has Edelman, and he has James White out of the backfield.
Chris Hogan and maybe Deion Lewis. The weapons are
Brady will be
plentiful.
Fine. So there's no question here you're excited about Brady. You're excited about Blunt because the 49ers are the worst run defense I've seen in years.
They're just
32nd in the league. Edelman has not been Edelman this year.
No, but without Gronk.
But he should be very effective this week. So he's out there. You're rolling him out. And then Martellus Bennett, if you had the ability to grab him or you were holding him, he's a great start this week.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much this is one of those games where you're going to start all your Patriots. Chris Hogan could have a great game. I probably would sit him just because he's not as involved since Brady's been back. But he could break one off for sure against this D. You're definitely starting LeGarrette Blount. Basically start your Patriots. The question is, what do you do with James White? When will we see Dion Lewis?
You stay away.
You stay away from both?
Yeah, I mean, if you're desperate, you can start James White, but I'm starting a CJ Prosise over James White in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, James White has not been very involved. I'd start Gio Bernard over him. I'd start Hyde, which is on the other side of this matchup, over James White. I'd start Jeremy Hill. I'd start Darren Sproles. I mean, the list is going to go on.
As a Dion Lewis owner, this is the game, man. This is the game where if they wanted to get him involved, and I'm not saying you can start him, but I'm saying the Patriots sure can. The Patriots, there's no reason to say, if you're Bill Belichick, Billy, if you're listening, put Dion Lewis out there and have him come home in style with a great matchup against San Francisco. Let him look like the glorious butter he was last year. Slippery.
Yeah.
He was just great. And then we can have confidence in Dion Lewis, have a new fantasy asset out there.
Bill Belichick has talked about this and said, when a player's coming back from missing a significant time with injury, there's a build-up process. And so the question is, how long does that take? I think it's going to take a while. My confidence. Obviously, you're not playing Dion Lewis. Now, on the other side, Colin Kaepernick, I've had people write in, and they're like, well, do you start Colin Kaepernick or Joe Flacco? And I say, look, Joe Flacco had his week in the sun. He played against Cleveland. I'm not touching Joe Flacco. I'm releasing Joe Flacco. He's got Dallas this week. No, thank you. Colin Kaepernick, on the other hand, is somebody that I absolutely love. I love him in the fantasy playoffs with week 14 and 15 against the Jets in Atlanta. I like him this week in garbage time. They're 14-point underdogs, and they're going to lose by 14 points or more. So to me, Kaepernick's going to have time to accumulate late-game yardage. He doesn't need to do a ton. One touchdown from Kaepernick, when mixed with his legs, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. He's been a fantasy. He has not hurt your team if you started him any of his 4 weeks. He's helped your team 3 of those 4 weeks, most likely. I'm very confident in him against New England at home.
3 of his 4 weeks, he has rushed for over 50 yards on the ground. He's got 1 rushing touchdown to go with the fact that he has yet to have a game without throwing a touchdown. I think he's somewhat safe. I mean, I don't see him as a top 10 guy this week, but I do think he is a startable player in that 12 to 15 range. And if you're in a 2-quarterback league, he is the perfect type of guy where you are able to get him, and you've probably got him with other players, and he is going to have a good enough fantasy game to start him.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the Eagles traveling up to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 6.5. It's a 45-point over-under. The Seahawks defense right now, it causes me to do what I most of the time have to do with the Seahawks defense, which is be very cautious about everybody I play against them. And so I don't know if I like anybody in this game. Genuinely, anybody on the Philadelphia Eagles. I have no confidence in deciding between Matthews and Sproles. I don't like Jordan Matthews. I don't like Zach Ertz. He's hurt. I'm not touching Carson Wentz. I think I've just blacklisted the Philadelphia Eagles this week.
Yeah, you might be in a position where you have to start someone like a Ryan Matthews or Darren Sproles.
If I had to choose between them, I would just...
If I had to choose, it's an easy choice for me, and it's Ryan Matthews.
Sure.
Because if Darren Sproles comes out and he is the guy, which could absolutely happen, Ryan Matthews still has a chance at a goal line touchdown.
You might be the guy. I don't know if you're starting for Philly.
Man, I
have no Doug Peterson.
I don't think I can take those hits, man.
He has pictures of John Fox in his bedroom. He is aspiring to be as...
If you had to start one, it would be Ryan Matthews, in my opinion, because he's been the goal line guy. However, bad matchup. You have no trust level. There's no way he's verified, right?
None.
Yeah.
Matthews?
Doug Peterson.
Oh, Doug Peterson?
He is completely untrustworthy.
No, it might be John Fox, for all I know.
Yeah.
There's just no way to find out.
I'm sure he's unverified.
But yeah, I'm not touching him. I really am not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can start Jordan Matthews against the Seahawks. I think you're
just
right.
to make it more confusing, I would start Sproles over Matthews. So
Really?
Because guess what? One of us is finally going to be right. We're not going to be.
But
we're not
whoever-
going to be listening.
And this is why we're blacklisting the Eagles this week, is because let's say Darren Sproles is the guy. I think he has a bad fantasy game. Let's say Ryan Matthews is the guy. I think he has a bad fantasy game.
my narrative is, they're tough up front. They're going to stop the between the tackles, and Sproles can get outside the tackle box.
And my narrative is touchdowns.
There you go. So that's why we're not touching them.
How about on the other side of the ball? Because the Philadelphia Eagles have also been a good defense. So how much you've had the Seattle Seahawks offense warming up, right? The last few weeks, Russell Wilson every week has looked a little bit more like himself. He's actually had 2 really good back-to-back fantasy performances. Does he keep it alive? Is it Doug Baldwin? Is it Jimmy Graham? I lean towards Baldwin. I would start Baldwin.
Totally
in this
fine
matchup.
Playing Baldwin this week. Totally fine playing Jimmy Graham this week.
What about Lockett? Is he a sneaky snart?
No,
You
he's
don't
not.
think so?
No.
Okay.
Why? I want to know why you even brought him up.
The only reason I bring him up is just I've seen some matchup numbers on specific corners, and it looks like it's a plus matchup for Lockett. But I agree. He's
had 2 games this year with more than 3 catches.
Yeah,
in the entire season. So no, I'm not touching him. He could surprise. Maybe he's some FanDuel cheap buy, but for me, I'm not touching Lockett. The debate here is everybody wants to know CJ Prosise or Thomas Rawls. Who do you have more confidence in? For me, obviously, CJ Prosise looked very good last week. He had 153 total yards in the win over the Patriots.
They've pretty much come out and said CJ Prosise is the starter. You already know that between him and Rawls, he's absolutely the pass-catching guy.
So let me give some perspective for fantasy owners thinking about who to start Prosise over. For us, right now, we have Prosise right around the 18-19 range. So that means he is a tick above Carlos Hyde in half-point leagues. Jeremy Hill, he was ahead of Ingram, who last night got concussed. He's ahead of Sproles, Rashad Jennings. We have him actually 1 spot ahead of Doug Martin. So that's about where Prosise is.
Yeah, and I would not start Thomas Rawls yet. Again, I think you could, but I would really prefer not to start him. You want to wait and see how involved he's going to be. And I expect 2 weeks from now, week 12, he'll be named the starter, and then you can roll out Rawls.
All right, Sunday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers take on the Washington Redskins. This is a game that I would take the over.
Go.
I would take the over. 50.5 point over-under, and I'd take the over in a heartbeat. The Washington's been getting it done. The Packers' defense has been atrocious. You gave up 47 last week to Tennessee. This is another game where Rodgers is going to have to be slinging it around. Cousins has the capability to do that. And so the beneficiaries here, for me, it's going to be 3 pass catchers on Washington. Crowder, Vernon Davis, and Jordan Reed. Those are the way and that's not the order necessarily. I'm just saying those are the 3 guys that I think are actually startable in this matchup.
Crowder, Vernon Davis, and Jordan Reed.
Yeah. And some people say, Pierre Garçon, but
yep, I was going to throw him in the mix as
well. You can throw him in the mix. Throw him in.
He's been involved enough.
We need something French in the mix.
Yeah, he's been involved enough over the last few weeks. I think he could be good. But Jamison Crowder to me is one of those guys he has now approached the must start. He is a tough guy on a lot of teams to start because he has what Michael Crabtree had coming into the beginning of this year and even coming into last year, where he seems like he doesn't have the crazy downfield talent or the measurables that say you've got to start this guy. He's a wide receiver 1, but he is so he's such a part of the offense. Where you watch third downs and they're going to Crowder. You get in the red zone.
He's got some Anquan Boldin.
And they're going to Crowder. And then you see him break a few tackles that are difficult to break. Make some nice moves. I think Crowder, I want to give people the confidence to just start him. Put him in your lineup because...
Are you starting him over Rashard Matthews, who's been on fire right now?
Yes. I mean, those 2 guys are both...
And you're starting him over Landry?
I am starting him over Landry this week, yes. Because Green Bay's passing defense has been atrocious. There should be points flowing in this game. Crowder has as good a chance to score a touchdown as any wide receiver in the league this week.
So Crowder or Devontae Adams in the same game?
That one is very interesting. I would probably go Davante Adams over Crowder. Davante Adams over the last 4 weeks has been one of the best wide receivers in the league. You've got Josh Norman, right, for the Washington Redskins in this game that I assume is going to be focusing more on Jordy Nelson. That's what's been happening in some of these matchups where Jordy Nelson gets the number one guy and Davante Adams is free to run wild while Randall Cobb is not at full health and full strength. All three of those things right now look to be true for Sunday's game. So I expect big things from Davante Adams this week. I would happily start both of those guys.
So how would you rate the Green Bay wide receivers? How would you put them in order between Cobb, Adams, and Nelson?
I would go Nelson, Adams, Cobb.
Okay. And you're confident in Adams, it sounds like. Sounds like Cobb, you'd still roll him out there as well.
I'd be willing to. I don't love him solely because he's not at full health, but I definitely think I would be willing.
Really important. Mike is asking.
I'm wide awake.
Is there any chance that he gets on the field this week?
I think there's very little chance he gets on the field. And if he gets on the field, I don't think he's going to do much. You've got James Starks, who knows the offense, who is healthy, who is already there. I mean,
is there any chance he does a lot for the sake of our show? So that when Mike comes back, Kristen Michael's relevant again. So Mike leaves, he's waived, signed, and then relevant again. Is there a chance that Mike's dreams come true?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, there's a chance he's already been signed. He's done some parts of that, but this is a depth play. Kristen Michael's a talented running back. They have no running backs on the roster that are healthy. So, yeah, make a waiver claim and get him in, but he doesn't know the system yet. And what you saw that, right? They traded for Niall Davis, but he didn't know the system, and he came in and he was returning some kicks, and I think he got a carry or two. And so, that's what Kristen Michael, maybe they'll throw him out there for a play or two and see what he could do. Maybe he takes that one play and breaks it to the house.
I'm going to tell you a prediction that I have for this game. I think James Starks, since we're actually going to speak about the relevant running back in this situation, I think James Starks could have a very, very good game. The Washington Redskins have given up 1.4 rushing touchdowns per game, which is almost dead last in the league. That is, and they're going to be in the red zone. Green Bay is going to be moving the ball.
They're 23rd against the run, the Redskins are for fantasy, so that's not very good.
I think Starks gets in the end zone again. I mean, last week he scored on a passing touchdown. I think he takes the majority of the snaps. It's another week to get healthy. I think he's a really good play this week. I'd put him in the running back 2 category, and I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of narratives that make sense. Plus, we have seen him have big fantasy games. Starks is not coming out of nowhere. Starks is not like, okay, well, who is this guy? We don't know. He's been valuable for the Packers for years, and hopefully he's healthy enough to get involved. And if we're right about the wide receivers, that the points are going to be flowing, the Washington run defense is not a scary thing. I could be happy with James Starks play.
All right, let's talk Monday Night Football in Mexico City.
Wait. You didn't get to throw your shade on Rob Kelly. A lot of Rob Kelly owners.
I'm sorry. We did completely forget that.
And we also kind of skipped Carlos Hyde back in the day. Are you confident?
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
A few minutes ago.
Yeah. Way back in the day.
What?
So let's talk about just those 2 players real quick.
Okay. Well, I named some guys that started over Hyde. I'll tell you that. I don't feel very good about Carlos Hyde. Patriots' run defense is pretty good. If you're in that decision-making position with Carlos Hyde, some guys I would start ahead of him. Doug Martin. I'd start Robert Kelly.
Oh, okay, so that brings us here. So Robert Kelly,
No, I would not start Robert Kelly ahead of him. I changed my mind. No, they're in that same category. I'd start Jordan Howard ahead of Hyde, Latavius Murray, but no, not Robert Kelly. Robert Kelly, I would put him at the back of the RB2 category this week.
Okay, that's fair. I didn't know how big your shade was because Green Bay's got a very good run defense and a very.
I'd start Starks over him.
And that makes sense. When you've got a team that's so bad at stopping the pass and they're good at stopping the run, you just kind of end up throwing the ball. Like, why wouldn't you? That being said, I have seriously been impressed with the film that I've watched on Rob Kelly. When I watch, I'm just thinking he picked not like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, but I go, he should have gone down there and he got 2 or 3 extra yards every play. We've shared the stat that, in over 100 carries, He's only been stopped in the backfield 2 times. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's what you want from a solid.
So you'd be willing to start him as that RB2.
2-3 cusp right there.
Gotcha.
So running backs are hard to come by. So Monday Night Football, Mexico City, the Texans, the Raiders. What do you think about this game? Because I know it's my...
Ooh.
Andy's almost upset of the week.
Wow.
I just think the Raiders are 6-point favorites. You know, they're the home team, quote unquote, but they're not, right? This game's on in Mexico City. I think that's a really big line for Oakland. Obviously, they're playing well. The Texans are technically the division leaders.
You just have the faith in Brock.
I have the faith in this 31st ranked passing defense that the Raiders have, that they're going to make it as easy on Brock to get his confidence back as possible. So I think with the way that the Texans are a great passing defense. They're the 3rd best in the league. To me, that's the strength, right? Carr can distribute to Cooper. He can distribute to Crabtree. I think it gets nullified enough for the Texans to sneak this game away. It's a 46-point over-under. It's not a super high one. It's right in the middle. I'm taking it as my almost upset.
All right. I can see the almost upset because of the 6-point line in what could end up being a somewhat lower scoring game. But I don't have the faith in Brock. DeAndre Hopkins is still startable as a that flex type of option, but he's not a wide receiver 1 here, even against the 31st ranked run D or pass D. Here's what I expect to see happen, to be completely honest. Who did the Raiders play last week? You remember? The Denver Broncos, right? And how did that game go? They ran the ball. It was one of those games where it was not the same Raiders that we have seen this year that's kind of airing it out and going hog wild, going super high scores.
Well, you can't do that against the Broncos.
Right.
And you can't do that against Houston.
And that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
So I expect them to have the same kind of game plan. I don't think this is a Derek Carr game. I think this is a Latavius Murray.
You would not start Carr?
Well, I mean, he's probably, for me, outside my top 12, but he's not bad. I'm not saying, you can't start Carr, but I don't love this matchup. I don't think he's going to, go off. Last week you had
2 weeks ago, by the way, is when they played.
Well,
the
sure,
Broncos.
their last.
They had
game,
the bye week.
Yes,
yeah.
Their last game that they played, and I remember thinking the game plan that they had, and looking at the schedule, saying this upcoming game against Houston's, I think they could implement a very, very similar game plan, which does say, Amari Cooper, right? He was only 6 for 56. Michael Crabtree was 2 for 27, and the reason was because you had the run game working, right? You had 20 for 114 and 3 for Latavius Murray, and you've still got another great passing defense across the field for the Texans. And the Texans' running defense is 26th. I'm just saying you've got a very similar possibility as a matchup. That's how I see it. I'm not saying you're not going to start Michael Crabtree or Amari Cooper. I'm not saying you can't start Derek Carr. I am saying start Latavius Murray in this game. I have a lot of confidence in him personally, and I could see this game being lower scoring, which helps your almost upset of the week.
Lamar Miller, you're rolling him out there.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Reflections on Lamar Miller, week 11 of the fantasy season, where you drafted him. I know you're an owner, so talk to me about.
Well, he was one of
Lamar Miller, and talk about him, not just how you feel about him now, but how you feel about him moving forward and as a dynasty guy.
Yeah, he was my guy, right? I chose him this year as my guy, and he has been a major disappointment. And it's funny to say that because right now he's sitting as the number 12 running back. He's an RB1, but you're very disappointed with him because he's actually been rather consistent as opposed to having these big monstrous games that you see out of like a DeMarco Murray. And so you look at Lamar Miller and you're just disappointed. But most of the time he's double digits in his fantasy games. Going forward, both long-term and rest of season, I think his projection is as good as it has been going backwards. As in, I'm not you've seen Lamar Miller's snap counts go down over the last few weeks, but part of that has come with the injury to his shoulder. I don't expect him to continue trending down. He actually has a very good playoff schedule. The Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Cincinnati for the playoffs. So I like him this year. I think he's going to help people in those fantasy weeks. And as a dynasty owner, he's still a young guy. You know, he signed this year with them at age 24, and their offense looks like it's got problems. And their offensive line has not been good. If they can improve that this offseason, Lamar Miller has the role and the work. They're not going to go out and get another running back this offseason. They drafted Tyler Ervin this year. I think Lamar Miller is very safe. That's my outlook on him. Disappointing but safe.
All right. I can get behind that. Disappointing but safe. That RB12, all I do is picture Frank Gore.
I know. I don't know why
you
he's
think
not.
Gore is upset that he doesn't have RB12 right now?
I don't think so, because I believe he's RB9, which is...
Yeah, he doesn't like that, though.
No,
he likes
true.
to blend
he's like,
in.
I'm number 12. What are you doing with my spot?
All right.
Why doesn't Gore wear number 12?
Right, just to let it known.
Yeah, just look, I'm RB12.
All right, no Daily Dose on the show today, so if you're waiting for Chris Meany, I'm sorry. But we do have 2 DFS articles up on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, by Brendan Sanders and Ben Cummins. So you can go rely on their advice for your FanDuel, DraftKings, that type of DFS type of pick this week. And so we bid you farewell. We thank you for joining us on this completely verified week of the Fantasy Footballers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at the FFBallers and get Mike back on Sunday morning for that Periscope. Get caught up with the beard. He'll help you out, make some last-minute decisions. You can submit questions on the website as well in the questions tab. We've got it all taken care of for you. We're the year-round fantasy football podcast you always dreamed of, that you asked for Christmas and you finally received.
We're not going away in January.
No, we're not.
No, we're
really not. No.
Hey, Andy, can I ask you a question as we leave?
Yes.
If we had to get a trophy or a championship belt or a championship ring, where would you go?
I'd go to fantasyjocks.com, our studio sponsor.
Me too.
You would do that as well?
I would.
Hey, whoever stole my if you stole, look, I'll forgive you, okay? If you return my 2 Christmas projector lights, I will.
All right, I'll bring them back.
In the Christmas spirit, I'll forgive you.
You should see my house, man. It looks amazing.
You know what I'm looking at online now?
I have 4 lasers now.
Oh, good. Sure. I'm looking at those Nest cams so I can catch this person next year.
Yeah, that's not going to catch them. You're just going to see them.
Yeah, and turn them into the cops. My son wanted me to call 911. That's what he actually said.
To another episode
See ya,
of
everybody.
the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.